Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? The Saints have made this official. They have added another offensive lineman coming off of their rookie minicamp this past weekend. They brought in Scott Lashley for a workout and ultimately decided to sign Scott Lashley after the workout this weekend. So Scott Lashley will go through a little bit of a kind of a thumbnail on his background, which is kind of interesting. So Scott Lashley was a 4-star coming out of the state of Mississippi, and he signed with Alabama. And he played at Alabama for 4 seasons. And from 2016 to 2019. And he transferred from Alabama to Mississippi State as a graduate and played 2 seasons there in Starkville, 2020, the COVID year, and then took advantage of the COVID year and played a 6th season at Mississippi State in 2021. So 4 seasons at Bama, 2 seasons at Mississippi State, 6 collegiate seasons. He played 19 games for Alabama over his 4 years there. So it was really a backup. Played some right tackle, really a lot of special teams. Then the COVID year, he missed the entire season due to injury, and then played 12 games at right tackle for Mississippi State in 2021. So a guy that's 6'7", 315, a big, long, athletic guy, but largely played on the right side in his collegiate career. But what's really interesting, if you haven't noticed, is that there's a gap there. He was a 2022 draft prospect who went undrafted. So when you look at some of the draft rankings for offensive tackles from 2022, Scott Lashley was really nowhere to be found on these draft rankings. This is one from Draft Countdown. They have Scott Lashley graded out as the 69th best offensive tackle in the 2022 draft. So he went undrafted, and I can't find any record anywhere of him having played football a year ago. One of the very interesting things about Scott Lashley is that he apparently also is a business owner, that he owns a sports performance training facility back in Mississippi. So good for him, by the way. It's called Scott Lashley Performance, and it's got a Twitter page, and you can see all the athletes that are working out there at his performance center as he's putting that on his Twitter. So good for him. Young dude who is very clearly entrepreneurial as well, who's got a lot of young people working out there at his performance training facility in Mississippi. So anyway, Scott Lashley goes to Saints rookie camp this past weekend, works out, and earns a roster spot. So the Saints sign him. And, the offensive line for the New Orleans Saints is just, on its face, it doesn't look like there's much opportunity, but it feels like we're heading into a year where there's going to be opportunity in the future. Here's what I mean. James Hurst has been your left tackle. Andrus Pete's back at left guard. McCoy's back at center. Ruiz is back at right guard. And, of course, Ramchik's back at right tackle. So you got your starting 5. You used a first-round pick a year ago on Trevor Penning, and you hope, knock on Formica, you hope he has an awesome camp and wins the left tackle job. You want your second-year first-round draft pick to beat out James Hurst and to be your franchise left tackle forever. And then you've got your tackles with Penning and with Ramchick. Now, we have talked about the interior linemen, and they drafted Saldiveri this year out of Old Dominion in round 4, and so that's a guy you hope could eventually take a job next year of either Pete, who's probably in his last year in New Orleans, or Ruiz, who they did not pick up his 5th-year option, so he could very well be on his way out, or maybe they sign him to a lesser deal after the season. We'll see. But you look at that and you go, okay, well, I see maybe the future there at guard, but what about depth? You always have to have depth on the interior and at tackle. You need depth, a guy that can play center or the guard spots. That's why Will Clapp was so valuable. Will Clapp was so valuable to the Saints because he was a guy that could be your tackle eligible, right? The extra offensive lineman that the Saints like to use, but he could also play center or guard. So if anybody went down on the interior, Clapp could play any of those positions. That's why a guy like that was super valuable. So maybe you cross-train guys at that spot right now. I mean, that's why Ruiz is valuable, because if McCoy goes out, Ruiz can slide over and play center for you. But then you need a guard, and that's why Throckmorton matters. That's why maybe Saldiveri is important. Or Penning this year, if he doesn't win the left tackle job, could play in the interior. You understand, like, if you had a gigantic roster with unlimited spots, this wouldn't matter. But because you're limited to a 53-man roster and everybody who's active on game day is going to play in some capacity, you got to have depth. And largely, it's your 5 starters, and you have an interior backup and a backup that could play tackle for you. So, yes, I look at these at spots like this, and I say that matters. Like, I do think it very much matters, who these guys are. They're going to come in and give you depth, because, man, we wouldn't have thought much about James Hurst. When they signed him and you had Teron Armstead at left tackle, but Armstead was oft injured, and then Armstead signs with Miami, and you need a left tackle, and all of a sudden that's your guy. Or you get in a situation with Andrus Peat where he has missed time every year of his career, and the fact that you got a guy who can back up Pete if it was Calvin Throckmorton, that matters. So, yes, I'm not going to just be dismissive and say it's just a camp body, because we've seen this too many times with players who are versatile, that can play on either side of the line, that earn themselves a roster spot. I mean, look, I just mentioned Throckmorton. That's a great example of it. A guy that was undrafted, who came to camp, won a job, and has stuck around the league and has contributed for your team. And I'm not going to tell you Scott Lashley is definitively that guy, but he's a guy that was a talented enough athlete coming out of high school to sign with Bama, was there for 4 years, played 2 years at Mississippi, he was at Mississippi State for 2 years, missed 1 year due to injury, and then started his 6th season. And we talk so much about culture. This is a guy who's at just out of college, owns his own performance facility there in Mississippi, and potentially could be someone who comes in and earns a roster spot. So worth watching. And maybe it's something where, I'm not like throwing James Hurst out of the league, but in the NFL, there's the old adage that you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're never staying the same. And so maybe James Hurst at 31 years old is still has many good years of football ahead of him and is still your best option, either as the starter or as your swing tackle as a backup. Or maybe you get younger there with Trevor Penning at left tackle, and maybe it's a guy like Scott Lashley who can come in and be a swing tackle, play on either side for you, and is a versatile athletic dude that gets you younger there. So I'll never, at positions where you have to have versatility and numbers, I will never be dismissive of a signing like this. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Saints got a steal and Scott Lashley's going to be an all-pro. I'm not telling you that at all. What I'm telling you is you got to have numbers and you got to have versatility on the offensive line, just like you do in the secondary. Look at what happened last year, right before the season. You trade C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Paulson Adebo was never really healthy. You were uncertain what was going to happen with Marshawn Lattimore. He obviously suffered an injury as well. Alontae Taylor, who you drafted, was injured. It kind of took some time, got back up to speed and up to form. Well, all of a sudden, man, guys like P.J. Williams all of a sudden become very valuable because of their versatility. Alontae Taylor, who you thought was probably going to be a nickelback, ended up playing outside, shows his value in his versatility. So, yes, man, those guys matter. J.T. Gray, great special teamer, of course, but his ability to play safety when you need him in a pinch matters as well. Quarterback, it don't matter. Like, I hope Jake Haener is great. You take a flyer on him. If it doesn't work, it don't work. You can take a flyer late round on a running back and maybe he makes the team, but it ain't that big of a deal. It matters at positions where you have the most injuries on the offensive line and you have to have versatility and depth. So you're going to bring in a guy that goes to rookie minicamp and earns a contract, you have my attention. All I'm saying is you have my attention. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.